Welcome back. It's Saturday morning. It's 8 a.m. It's time to go low right here on the Big 8 in Tampa. We appreciate you guys tuning in to the Let's Go Low show hosted by Jeff Stanislow from Golfers Unite. And as always, our guest and host of the Caddie's Corner with me on the Let's Go Low show is our friend Mike Hicks, Payne Stewart's former caddy. How you doing this morning, Mike?
Doing fine, Jeff. Doing fine. Hope you had a great Father's Day.
I did. It was one of those days that, lined up perfectly. Had, breakfast. The kids made it. Played a little sim golf with my son. I got to sit down and watch the U.S. Open and had some steaks for dinner. So it was a fantastic Sunday on Father's Day this year. How was yours?
That was great. I actually had to work in the shop for, 4 or 5 hours, and got home and I had to grill the burgers. Had a couple of my kids over and a couple of the grandkids. So it was a great afternoon.
Yeah, it was very special. I did the grilling of the steaks myself. That's kind of my thing. So we all know that there. So Mike, anyways, on top of a great Sunday, we had a great finish to the U.S. Open. Everybody went in there. Wyndham Clark with a 6-stroke lead on Sunday morning. Probably maybe checked out a little bit of watching in and tuning in, thinking he was just going to run away with it. What are your thoughts on the U.S. Open finish and how Wyndham Clark did?
Well, Sam Burns, got off to a good start. Got with eventually got with him one, which that had to happen to put a little heat on Wyndham. Because when you got a 6-shot lead in any golf tournament, you're expected to win. So that added pressure, and then you put on top of it, it's a U.S. Open. He had all kinds of things working against him, but he was 4 under, and Burns was 3. Wyndham's playing the 10th hole, hits driver, which nobody was doing because, I've been there a few times, and, you're trying to give yourself a shot that you can spin. He's got 60 yards up that hill, and I'm like, man, this is too close. How's he going to spin this? And he actually spins the ball back, which Bones was dumbfounded also. Former caddy for Phil Mickelson, now doing TV. But as a caddy, that shot, you can't spin that shot that much. Not many people anyway. But Wyndham surely did, and that was a huge momentum swing for him, making birdie there and kind of righted the ship. And he ended up hanging in there and pulling it off. So hats off to him.
Yeah. This is Jeff Stanislow. You're listening to Let's Go Low show right here on AM 820 in the greater Tampa Bay area. We're talking with Mike Hicks, Payne Stewart's former caddy, and we're talking about the U.S. Open. This episode is brought to you by golfersunite.com, and it's golfersunite.com. Check it out. Free memberships. You can get access to some great brand deals. Just for $30 for the year, you can get access to 14 more. golfersunite.com. So, Mike, it's Wyndham's second U.S. Open, so now he's getting into some, elite, golf category here. How important it is that he had the first one under his belt when he went out there on Sunday afternoon to, claim his second title, that experience.
Well, it gave him, the self-confidence knowing that he'd done it already. Now, granted, it was a totally different type of venue. Although, I was very surprised on how the USGA set Shinnecock up. Fairways were a lot wider than normal. In LA North, the fairways were huge for a U.S. Open. So, it's a little similar, forgiving fairways. And, Wyndham went into the week playing great. So he had control of his golf ball, and he obviously was confident in his putter. And he proved to everyone how good a scrambler he is. He chipped the ball beautifully. I thought he got very fortunate on the second hole on Sunday with the lie that he caught after hitting that ball way left. But that's what happens. When you win one of those things, you get the breaks. And when you're in the hunt and you don't get those breaks, that's when you don't win. So everything kind of went his way, which is what's got to happen when you win a U.S. Open.
This is Jeff Stanislaw, and you're listening to Let's Go Low right here on AM 820. Tune in every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Our special guest, once again, from hosting our Caddie's Corner edition is Mike Hicks, Payne Stewart's former caddy. We're talking about the U.S. Open from last weekend. Mike, when you took a look at, just the jockeying that was going around on Sunday, obviously Wyndham was faltering and Sam Burns was coming on strong. When you're working with your guy on the bag, what are you talking to him about? Words of encouragement? Are you, let's get your ass going type stuff? How are you having your conversation with your guy when all of a sudden that there's someone creeping up and he's not playing his best golf?
Well, listen, you can't control what's going on with the other players. All you can do is control what you're doing. So, and there's no, at that particular point in a U.S. Open, there's no rah, rah, rah going on. You're going to catch in a U.S. Open. The biggest factor is accepting failure and accepting what happens out there. And if you can do that and not let it carry over to the next hole and get refocused on the shot at hand, the better off you're going to be. So, you're not out there, like I said, there's no rah-rah, no, hang in there, we're okay, blah, blah, that type of stuff going on. Because, you're in the lead for a reason. You're in the lead because you're playing better than everybody else. So
yeah,
you've just got to, you've just got to move on if there are mistakes made and refocus. You kept hearing Big Wave Dave tell Wyndham, good process, go through the process over and over and over. And that's what it takes, is repetition, hearing the same thing over and over. With Payne, before he hit every shot in every tournament, I would say get your spot nice and slow. Get your spot, meaning intermediate target, nice and slow, meaning good rhythm off the ball. So, you hear that repetitive voice, and it's, I think it's a calming influence. And it's just a way to get your player refocused.
Yeah, I like that. A lot of times, like you said, the rah-rah and, or, the push isn't necessarily going to work. Now, what works is what got him there. The process. I did hear that about Big Wave Dave, just like, okay, you got the process down, I'll execute. It's like you said, pick your spot, get your tempo, do the things that have been working and lock those in. And then when you do have a falter, don't carry it along. This is Jeff Stanislaw. You're listening to Let's Go Low right here on AM 820, the Big 8. We're talking with Mike Hicks, Payne Stewart's former caddy, about the U.S. Open. You mentioned rah, 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 and there was some rah, rah, rah going on at the U.S. Open. Several fans had to be escorted out. It seemed like the fan base didn't want Wyndham to win. My question to you was, like, is it more because they had the six-stroke lead and they wanted a competitive match? Or do you think it was a little bit, personal in there? But they were kind of on him, during the round. It was like they wanted to see, a tie or a playoff or him lose. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you handle that as being caddy?
Well, listen, it all stemmed back from what he did at Oakmont last year in the locker room when he missed the cut. So, and in today's world, these social media freaks that come on and just banter and just try to
stir the pot.
I mean, it's awful. And Bob Ford, who is the head at Oakmont, even came on and said, "Hey, we've moved on." He has shown remorse. He has done everything we've asked him to do. We have forgiven him. And in
Yeah.
today's society, we don't forgive anymore. And listen, Wyndham, I watched many interviews with Wyndham. Wyndham was very remorseful, answered all the questions. Every day it was brought up. And
Right.
he answered the questions. He was very professional. He's very remorseful. And people have to forgive. Listen, we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. I mean, give the guy a break. And listen,
Yeah.
the reason that all went down is because where they were. Long Island, New York, Long Island. You go back to Bethpage. Anytime it's on that island, those
It gets
people,
rowdy.
it's rowdy. That's right. They're a rowdy group.
Yeah,
So
100%. This is Mike Hicks, Caddie's Corner, right here on AM 820's Let's Go Low show, hosted by Jeff Stanislow from Golfers Unite. If you guys haven't checked out Golfers Unite, it's golfersunite.com. Free members get access to 4 great deals, from golf balls to technology to equipment. Paid members only $30 for a year, and you get access to 14 more deals, including a deal with our friend Mike Hicks at MikeHicksGolf.com. If you guys want to check it out, or if you want to interview or talk to Mike a little bit about your game, go to MikeHicks.com, MikeHicksGolf.com, and check him out and reach out and tell him that you heard him on the Let's Go Low show. So, Mike, crowd is rowdy. They're excited. They're fired up. But I think you do bring a good point across, and that the media world today, whether it's social media or traditional media or whatever, it's like they want to, get the clicks. They want to get the eyeballs. And so they keep on coming and beating the same old drum. And, hopefully with Wyndham winning that thing, winning his second Open, and just, silencing the critics, as they say, hopefully that can all get put behind him, because I feel like he was generally remorseful and he made a mistake, and I think we should accept it and move on too. As we pivot here, Mike, what was one of the things in the U.S. Open that absolutely blew you away, shocked you, like a player that just played terrible, or something at the venue that surprised you?
I get it. They hit the forecast. They knew what was coming with heavy winds and whatnot. And kudos to the USGA. Now, 20 years ago, those greens, they may have slowed them down to 12, but never down to 10, right? I mean, they would have just sucked it up, and the ball might have been rolling around on the green, and they had to suspend play. So be it. We'll finish Monday, whatever.
Right.
They've always been a stickler about you're going to play. You're going to play in the weather. You're going to play. They were just real hard people back in the day. Now they've softened them quite a bit, the USGA. So the widths of the fairways were surprising to me, and the speeds of the greens. Now, if you watched, and then the people that are listening, I'm sure most of you watched, and the TV doesn't do it justice. What those greens are absolutely asinine. The spots that you have on the greens to land your ball and keep it semi-puttable are very small. Now, when you get 25, 30 mile an hour winds, they're impossible. So his 36 hole score is absolutely phenomenal. What he did for 36 holes, Wyndham Clark, unbelievable with that type of wind. Now, granted, with the greens been faster, no way. Nobody's under par. There's no way anybody's breaking par if the green speeds were what they normally are at that venue. So, but my biggest surprise was the setup, and kudos to the USGA. They got it right. I mean, it was a great tournament. I don't know how many people finished under par. 3?
Yeah. Yep. Burns, Tom Kim, and Wyndham. This is Jeff Stanislow. You're listening to Let's Go Low here. Mike is going to come back with us for part 2 of the Caddie's Corner because we have so much to talk about on the Let's Go Low show about the U.S. Open. We're going to talk about some carnage that did happen. We're going to talk about the fan base. We'll talk a little bit about the business behind the U.S. Open, the merch and the, amount of revenues and stuff like that driven. Mike, in closing, quick, which player surprised you the most that didn't make the cut?
That didn't make the cut? Patrick Cantlay.
Yeah, I like Patty Ice. I was very surprised too. He seems smooth.
Yeah, I mean, it just he obviously didn't putt well, or he would have made it. That's really what it boils down to.
And then we're going to pick up on Scottie as well, since it was Scottie's 30th birthday and everybody wanted to get him done out there. This is Jeff Stanislow, and you're listening to another great episode of Let's Go Low. Come right back after the break as we got more right here on the Big 8. Welcome back. We are heading to part 2 of our special 3-part series with our friend Mike Hicks, Payne Stewart's caddy, talking about the U.S. Open. Mike, appreciate you guys coming back and hanging out for our audience right here in Tampa Bay on the Big 8, AM 820, brought to you by Golfers Unite, golfersunite.com. You guys check it out. We'd appreciate it very much. They support this show, and we need to show some love and support as well. This is Jeff Stanislow, your host. Mike, picking up on our U.S. Open talk, we had a great first segment. But, one thing we didn't get into, and we can open up the door for that, is Scottie's golf game right now. Obviously, it was his 30th birthday, and I'm sure he wanted to complete the Grand Slam and what have you. But, he just didn't get it done once again. I mean, played great golf, but, it seems like the story for 2026. He's playing great golf. He's there. Makes a great run on Saturdays. He's right there, kind of close on Sundays, but just isn't getting it done this year. What do you think is going on with the Scottie camp there?
Well, his iron play is he's not hitting the ball as close to the hole as he has been. And he was barely off on a lot of the shots last week, and barely off around that place ends up in a bad spot. And that happened over and over and over. So he's not far off. I mean, listen, it's golf, man. You are not going to stay, that wave, you got to ride it while you're on it. And, it is a brutal game. And even, everybody's wondering, what's wrong with Scottie? What's wrong with Scottie? Listen, it's tough, man, to stay at that level and to do it over and over and over. And, nothing's really changed. His iron play, I think, is just a little off. If you watched a lot of his tee shots last week, especially the left to right winds, he was hitting a pull and it wasn't coming back because he was a little afraid of overcutting it and getting on the wind and ended up in the right rough. So he was hitting a little pull that didn't come back. And you saw that over and over. Barely goes in the rough, and out of the rough there, you were not going to hit shots close. Now, you may hit it on the green, but you were not going to hit it real close. So, he's just a little off. I think his iron game is just is not quite as good, not quite as sharp, not hitting it as close to the hole. And like I said, last week, he was just a little off. And a little off around that place, ball ends up in a bad spot.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier on the first segment about the greens at Shinnecock, and they're big greens and they're fast, but the spots that you need to hit them to score are really small and difficult. And then you add that wind factor in there, and you got yourself quite a challenge. So, you playing with Payne and those spots really well. our average golfers, the listeners on the our radio show here, the Let's Go Low show, probably don't understand the size of the spot they get. Maybe you can help with giving them a little insight on some of the holes and the size spots that they got to hit.
Well, the greens themselves they look pretty big, but the playable part of the greens are very small. Now, case in point, the 7th hole, they only have a 20-foot area, 25-foot area that they can put the pin on that green. I mean, half of that green, over half, 3/4 of that green is not playable. It's unusable. That's why you saw it in the same spot pretty much every day. They just kept moving it a little further to the right. They started left, they went further 7 feet right, then another 7 feet right, and then another 7 feet right. So, your playable green on those complexes is not very big, which then you factor in that much wind. And, I mean, listen, that's how good the guys are today, though. I mean, there were a lot of good scores. I mean, the cut was 4 over and that kind of wind, but kudos to the USGA because the green speeds were only 10. Had they been normal and had they backed them off to 12, you'd have seen probably an 8 or a 9 over cut. Nobody would have been under par. Maybe Wyndham at 1 under or something. He would have never been 7 under. I can promise you that. But because they didn't want the balls blowing around on the greens, they slowed them down to a 10. And, at speeds of 10, even your downwind putts were playable. So you could actually stop the ball near the hole if you, put the correct pace on it. But, it was a soft Shinnecock. Let's say that.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I think it was, like you said, by design. I think the USGA had, some grief over previous years at Shinnecock and making it so unplayable to the point where they kind of had to even apologize for how difficult they made it in years past. So they had some making up to do, and I think they did a good job. This is Jeff Stanislaw, and you're listening to another great episode of the Let's Go Low show right here on AM 820, the Big 8 in Tampa. We appreciate you all tuning in every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. This is brought to you by Golfers Unite, golfersunite.com. You want to get access to deals, golfersunite.com has it. You get 4 as a free membership and 14 more for just $30 for the year. Check out golfersunite.com. And if you'd like to talk to Mike Hicks or maybe have Mike come out to your outing or you want him on your bag for a special event, go to MikeHicksGolf.com. You can check it out. Mike, back to Scottie, it was great for the fans singing him happy birthday, walking up 18. And he is, one of the top golfers in the world, actually, still number 1 ranked. But, you look at the year he had in 2024 and just winning everything, that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on you as a player. You can't expect to go out and have years like he had there going into 25 season and continuing on, especially as life happens. He, had children. He's got some different responsibilities as a dad. Talk a little bit about maybe the outside factors that, may play on a player of his caliber as they're, getting these life experiences, and how do you keep them focused?
Well, I mean, outside of golf, a lot of changes in his life. I think they've had their 2nd child now. They have 1 or 2. I think it's 2. And, him being a believer, and his faith being first in his life, he doesn't live and die with his golf. So now, is he a competitor? Absolutely. Does he want to win? Absolutely. But he's not living and dying with his play because of his faith. And look, like I said before, to all the outside stuff that goes on with being the world number 1 and the outside noise, the sponsorships, everybody wants a piece of you. And to his credit, I don't think he's doing a lot of running around chasing corporate money, blah, blah, blah. Now, granted, today's world, they're playing for a lot of money. He's making a lot of money playing golf. Back in the Payne Stewart days, 80s, 90s, those guys weren't playing for that kind of dough, and they had to chase that corporate money. And it cost Payne a little bit. I remember I think it was 94, maybe 93, 94. We were in Europe 4 different trips, and one trip was for a whole month, 4 weeks in a row, but he was chasing that appearance money, the corporate money. Because, it was a lot of money, and it was, he wasn't making, back in those days, he was making good money, but he wasn't making the money they're making today on the golf course. So, I think Scottie's got his priorities in order. Family, God, family, his golf, those 3 in that order. And it's just hard to sustain, that kind of play. You win 8 times in 1 year, something, whatever it was, but he's still, what's his worst finish this year? He's still, every time
pushing all top 10s, it seems like in every event.
Every time he tees it up, his name's on the leaderboard. So, people got to show some grace here and not get all, listen, Tiger Woods was a freak. Tiger Woods was a special talent, a once in a lifetime talent. In our lifetime, we'll never see another player like that. They come along every whatever. And you had Jack, then you had Tiger in our lifetime. And you're not going to see another player like that. Scottie Scheffler is a great golfer, but he is not Tiger Woods.
100%. And, I think maybe one day we'll have an episode and just talk about the Tiger effect on golf, because you nailed it right there. This is Jeff Stanislow. You're listening to Let's Go Low right here on AM 820, the Big 8 in Tampa. We appreciate all your listeners. This episode is brought to you by golfersunite.com. And if you guys want to talk to Mike Hicks, you can visit MikeHicksGolf.com. Maybe you got an event coming up, or you want to bring Mike out and have on your bag at a corporate outing or something different. Go to MikeHicksGolf.com and check him out. Mike, how about the carnage? Bryson, Victor Hovland, Brooks Koepka, these guys, DeChambeau, these guys struggled out there. Anything kind of shining through on those golfers and what's going on with their game?
Well, they weren't hitting fairways. That was the main thing. You don't hit fairways. Even if you put it on the green, you're playing defense, even at green speeds of 10. So, if you look at the guys that were up there, they were putting the ball in the short grass for the most part. And, it's the old cliche, you got to hit fairways and greens at the U.S. Open. And at Shinnecock, fairways first and foremost, because of how small the playable green is. And if you look at it, there are a lot of short holes there for these guys. If they hit driver in the fairway, there was wedge after wedge after wedge being hit. And you think about the greatest players in the world with a wedge in their hand, even they were having trouble keeping the ball close to the hole. A good shot on a lot of those holes was 20 feet from the hole with a wedge, right? You saw your odd stuffed shots, which is going to happen. And that takes a perfect yardage, a perfect condition, and you hit a perfect shot for that to happen. Any in-betweens or you saw a lot of guys, because they wanted to, even with wedge, they wanted to create as much spin as they could, because they knew if they flew the ball too far, even short of the hole with no spin, it was gone. It was over the green. And you
Right.
saw that time and time again. So that's why you saw a lot of wedge shots coming up short, 30 feet short, 40 feet short, because they were trying to create as much spin as possible just to keep it on the green. And like I said, your stuffed shots, your shots within, a couple of feet, 4 feet, were all perfect scenarios.
Yeah. Mike Hicks, Payne Stewart's former caddy, right here on the Caddie's Corner with the Let's Go Low show on the Big Eight. Mike, how about Brooks? What's going on with Brooks? I mean, he pulled out the weekend before in Canada, again at Shinnecock. What do you think's going kind of through his head, and your experience? How do you get him out
Well,
of this funk?
it's too bad because he came back to the PGA Tour knowing that he needed to play golf and play some sustained golf, not play 2 weeks, have a month off, play 3 weeks, have 6 weeks, whatever their schedule is only 15 weeks. So he wanted to get back in the groove of playing tournament golf and playing 4 weeks in a row. Just getting back, and the live tour is kind of a fantasy tour in some respects. You're in shorts, you got music playing. I mean, it's just not as serious an atmosphere, in my opinion. And then Brooks got injured. Now I don't know what it is. It's his back or his wrist, whatever it is. He was not 100% at Shinnecock. So if you're not 100% going into an event like that, especially around Shinnecock, you probably aren't going to fare too well.
Yeah, it's difficult. One thing that I was amazed with, and we're going to, come back for the third episode. We're dedicating this weekend show at Let's Go Low show to the U.S. Open, and we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming event as well. But, just the wedge play that you talk about, I was just absolutely amazed at how many wedge shots were made because everybody's either laying up or they hit it over. The ability for these pros to make that second shot to save par, was absolutely incredible. As an average golfer, I can't get spin on the ball like that. What is one of the secrets of that they're doing that allows them to generate the speed, and then maybe just comment on how good these guys are with their wedges?
Well, I mean, they're obviously hitting the ball first.
Yeah.
That's the key to it all, right? Putting spin on it is hitting the ball first. Divot after the ball, right? I mean, most of us are letting that thing go well before we get to the ball. So listen, man, this is the hardest game ever, and it brings every great athlete that's ever played other sports to his or her knees. I mean, it's
Yes.
an incredibly hard sport. The ball does not move till you make it move.
There we
So,
go. We're going to bring Mike. We're bringing Mike back for the third segment here on the Let's Go Low show. This is Jeff Stanislow, your host of Golfers Unite's Let's Go Low show, right here on AM 820, the Big Eight. All right, welcome back, Tampa. You're listening to our final segment with our favorite golf commentator right here on the Let's Go Low show, Mr. Mike Hicks, Payne Stewart's former caddy. We are concluding our U.S. Open discussion. What a great weekend, Father's Day weekend. A great finish by Wyndham Clark, who held the lead for the majority of the tournament. Got it done on Sunday. All great things by Wyndham. Showing his display of professional and grabbing his second U.S. Open and fighting off Sam Burns. Mike, thanks for joining us once again and coming back for this third segment. Yeah,
he was wire to wire. It's only happened 3 or 4 other times in U.S. Open history, wire to wire winner. That's a lot of pressure. Payne Stewart in 1998 had the lead for 3 days. At Olympic Club, and led pretty much for 70 holes and lost it the last couple of holes. So it's hard. It's a hard thing to finish off, especially if you're leading the whole week, because the media, you're the guy. All the attention's on you, And as the week goes on, the pressure gets greater and greater. So, again, hats off to Wyndham for handling everything, all the outside noise, all the abuse from the gallery, from the fan. I mean, where else? I mean, an American trying to win the U.S. Open and they're cheering for his ball to roll off the green or go in a bunker or he miss a putt. I could see it if it was a foreigner and they're cheering for an American, but not on U.S. soil. So, Wyndham showed a lot of moxie, showed a lot of self-belief, a lot of courage in being able to block all that noise out and concentrate on what he was doing. So it was a great win in more ways than one.
Yeah, and that was well said, you know what I mean? And they did ride him up in New York quite a bit, and we talked about that in our previous episode. And I think the golf fandom and the golf fan base just needs to put that to bed now. He apologized, he was remorseful. Apology was accepted by Oakmont and the PGA Tour, and but the media likes the highlights. They like to poke the fire and poke the bear, and so they keep on bringing it up. But hopefully we don't see any of that anymore. And definitely, being an American winning the U.S. Open, should have been cheering for him and excited for him. It wasn't like a Ryder Cup foe was in the lead and they're doing the usual jarring that happens on in that. We're talking with Mike Hicks. Mike is our famed guest here in the Caddie Corner on the Let's Go Low show right here on AM 820, the Big 8 in Tampa, and we're honored to have him. If you wanted to reach out to Mike, possibly if you have an event that you want to host, maybe bring him in as a speaker or a tournament, or maybe you're hosting a seminar or something like that, Mike is available. You can go to MikeHicksGolf.com, reach out to him, and maybe even be on your bag one day for a special event or a bucket list trip that you got planned. So Mike, finishing off our discussion on the U.S. Open, one of the things that we didn't really talk too much about was Sam Burns and his level of play this year. He is playing some great golf.
Yeah, he's played very consistent golf. You got to be fortunate to win one of those things. And I'm not going to say he's going to win one because you just never know what's going to happen. Everything's got to go your way. But in retro, if you keep getting there, you'd like to think the door will open for you. So, just keep knocking. And, he had a really good demeanor going on Sunday. I thought he got a bad break last year at Oakmont, them not giving him the drop.
Gotta give him relief.
That was a bad ruling. And you know what? And he even said it. He should have been a little more forceful there, because it was casual water. I mean, he should have asked for a third opinion. I would have brought somebody in there till they gave me the drop. I know Payne would.
Yeah,
you just keep calling them in until one of them gives you the relief, right?
Yeah, there you go. He's been very adamant about that. I mean, he asked for two opinions, and you kind of say, okay, well, that's enough. But after he hit that shot, and hindsight being 2020, I wish he would have, because I would have liked to have seen how that played out. Last year at Oakmont for him. Tampa's a big supporter of Sam Burns. He actually won the Valspar here a few years back, and myself being a Copperhead and part of the Valspar Championship, involved in that. I was, a silent, not silent, but I'm a Sam Burns fan, and I like the golf that he's playing and the consistency that he is showing, for sure. So,
he's won that tournament a couple of times now, I think, right?
Yeah.
And listen, as far as PGA Tour tournaments go, that particular golf tournament is about as U.S. Open as you're going to get. That's a very difficult test to golf, especially with any kind of wind. That is very U.S. Open like. So if he's won it twice, so I mean, he obviously likes that kind of golf.
Yeah, exactly. So, kind of wrapping up our stuff on the U.S. Open before we start talking a little bit about the next PGA event coming up here this weekend. What was the feeling when you won the U.S. Open with Payne? Maybe briefly. We talked sometime in the past about this, but since it's relative, you got to hoist the hardware and you got to celebrate with Payne. Maybe at Pinehurst, maybe just give us a quick brief thoughts on winning that.
I mean,
what it meant.
listen, 91 when we won at Hazeltine, it was his first major. It was, it was more relief than anything else for him because, he was a major. He was contending in majors and just hadn't done it. And he won. Well, actually, that was our second major. So we won in 89 at PGA. That's right. So that was his second major. So what it did is it validated what he had done in 89 was winning at Hazeltine. But the 99 Open in my home state, first time at Pinehurst, and the fact that I was doing a charity event on the Monday after with Payne, Fred Couples, Hal Sutton, and Paul Azinger. And Payne, stayed with his commitment and went up and played that Monday after we won. So he spent the night at my house. On Sunday night, we drove the 65 miles in my van up to my house, and partied all night. And
I got to party all night. Yeah.
Partied all night. And then he, was just great the next day playing in this outing. So, it was a special thing because, I can guarantee you that no caddy has ever won a major and had their players spend the night in their house after winning. I mean, it ain't never happened. I guarantee you. So it was just, in my home state, it was just, it was a special week. And then, the Lord took him 4 months later and, we all know that story. So, just a special week.
So we're talking with Mike Hicks from Mike Hicks Golf. This is Jeff Stanislow, your host of the Let's Go Low show right here on AM 820, the Big 8. We appreciate all the Tampa listeners and all those people that go to our YouTube channel, which we put up on our YouTube channel. If you just search up Golfers Unite, you can catch all these episodes from the Let's Go Low show. Since we've been doing it for a few months now, there's quite a few there. Again, thank you very much, Mike, for joining us. Let's talk a little bit about this upcoming tournament. We got the Travelers Championship. It's going to be held at TPC River Highlands, and they call it the Whiplash event because we're going to probably see -20, -25, and compared to what we saw at Shinnecock there. What's your first thoughts on that course, and then just going from the difficulty of Shinnecock to a course where these guys can go low?
Well, it is one of the best TPCs they play, and the reason they go low there is because of the softness. Now that golf course is played hard and fast only a couple of times and 6-7 under wins. So if it's hard and fast, it's not a cakewalk. But like I said, it never plays that way because of when it is, and there's always been rain, thunderstorms. The course is it's throwing darts, and anytime a course is soft where the ball doesn't, the fairways are wider, the greens are, like I said, you're throwing darts. These guys are going to light it up. But that golf course is one of the best TPCs in the country as far as the layout goes. I love that golf course. There's some very difficult holes. There's some easier holes, but there are some very difficult holes. And like I said, it has only played hard and fast a couple of times. I think Lanny Watkins might have won at 6-7 under the first few times we went there. But it's never hard and fast. it could be a difficult course if they ever had those conditions.
This is Jeff Stanislaw. You're listening to Let's Go Low right here on AM 820, the Big 8 in Tampa. Again, Tampa, we appreciate you tuning in. Brought to you by Golfers Unite, golfersunite.com. If you want some deals on some golf equipment, merch, what have you, we got 4 free deals for signing up as a free member. For $30 for the year, you get access to 14 more deals from the likes of Branded Bills, Tacoma, Pinned Golf, Seed Golf Balls, even the Payne Stewart collection's on there. Mike helped me get that deal done. We got the Payne Stewart collection on there. Save and check it out, golfersunite.com.
Hey, I got to say something, everybody. That Seed golf ball is a really good golf ball. I've played it. It goes off the driver and it spins around the greens. I love that golf ball.
Yes, it's one of my favorites. It's my go-to now every time as well. And they were kind enough to send me the Golfers Unite branded golf balls, so I was really kind of them. But at the end of the day, it is a very, very good golf ball. Thanks for bringing that up, Mike. Pivoting to the favorites, for this upcoming event at the Travelers, we still have Scottie at the number 1 in odds. Then we got Xander, Tommy Fleetwood, Sam Burns, Ludwig, and then Wyndham Clark, who actually, now is broke into one of the odds-on favorites. What do you think Wyndham's got to do, rebounding from that U.S. Open win?
So I take it Travelers is an elevated event.
Yes, I believe it is.
It has to be for all those guys to be playing. It's got to be a $20 million event, and they're being pretty much forced to play. So, Wyndham, could he contend again? Possibly. Just depends on how much mental effort he wants to put into it. Scottie seems to just bring it mentally every week. So, he'll just move on. He didn't win. He didn't have a lot of the extra stuff to go through after the tournament was over Sunday. So, I'm sure he'll get some rest and be ready to rock and roll tomorrow for the Pro-Am and for Thursday. So, who knows? I mean, with that kind of field, they'll shoot the grass off that place if it's soft. And who knows? Whoever it's a putting contest at that point. So it's if they're throwing darts, it's who makes the most putts.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with the likes of Bryson and Rahm, who I'd like to see him. I think it'd be good for the golf game to get, those guys, kind of back in there in the hunt and playing it. It's you look at, and we talked about the Tiger effect earlier, Mike, and we may not ever have one like that, once again in our generation, but we hope that it happens again because it's good for the game of golf. But having, like the likes of John Rahm, Brooks, Bryson, kind of hunting down these leaderboards is good for the game of golf. Who do you think's going to win? I'm liking Xander's game. He faltered a little bit over on the Open, but I still I like him, and I'd like to see Patty Ice with a nice rebound too.
Well, Xander, if it gets into the 20s, I don't know Xander's record and his wins, the scores, but I don't think he's a good enough putter to throw it in the 20s. That's just my opinion. Maybe he may have a great week putting. I don't know. Maybe he will. I think a lot of those guys, though, that were contending, there's going to be a little bit of a letdown going up there. And they can lose interest real quick if they're not making putts. All of a sudden they're 9-10 shots back and haven't teed off yet. And, get off to an even par through 6 holes, they can lose interest real fast. So, especially the guys that were in contention last week, because listen, you never know in that U.S. Open what can happen. So you're grinding right to the end mentally, and that takes a lot out of you. It does. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. And going back to those live guys, listen, Bryson is really the only one that can move the needle anymore in golf because of the way he plays, because of his power, because of his uniqueness, and his personality. He needs to be playing on the PGA Tour. The tour needs Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah.
More so than any other player in the world. They need Bryson.
100%. Well, Mike Hicks from Mike Hicks Golf joining us here on the Caddie Corner. That wraps up our episode here every Saturday morning, 8 a.m., the Let's Go Low Show, brought to you by Jeff Stanislow and Golfers Unite, golfersunite.com. We appreciate you all tuning in, Tampa. Until next time, let's go low.